Raven Nole Show. I'm your host, Raven C. Nole, known as the Soul Physician. I'm a wife, mother, counselor, mindset plus life coach, and speaker. Hey, Michelle.
Hey girl,
How you doing?
I'm doing so good. How are you?
I am good. So glad to have you on the podcast.
So happy to be here.
I was so excited to interview you because I love your authenticity. And I know that that's just a staple for you and a value within your brand. And it's just so magnetic. It shows up in everything that you do. So I know that this conversation is going to be so good because of that authenticity and your willingness to just kind of, be open. So I was excited about it.
Absolutely. Listen, when I saw that you hit me up, I was like, oh yeah, that's a yes for me.
I
Oh
love
my
that.
gosh, yes, absolutely.
So even though there is like this level of authenticity and openness that you share on your platforms, I know there's still things that people don't know and things that people don't see and people don't realize about you. So what do you feel is like the number one thing people don't know or often don't realize when it comes to those who have careers as influencers?
Yeah, no, it's a lot. Like honestly, you feel like you're sharing your world with the people, right? But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, as a person who has kind of grew up in this influencer marketing world, I've learned boundaries in a real way and
Mm,
learning access and what to share and what not to share. And you kind of learn that along the way.
yeah.
But I feel like with me personally, what I would say is that honestly, like I feel like we're all just trying to figure it out. Like we don't know what we're doing oftentimes, especially those who are more of like lifestylists,
Yeah.
and maybe I focus a lot on lifestyle and beauty. And I think, one thing about me is like sometimes I'm like, I really don't know what I'm doing because as my life evolves in the different
Yeah.
stages that it evolves to and elevates to, I'm learning a new perspective. I'm learning a little bit more about myself. I'm undoing things, unlearning things to
Yeah.
then learn new things. And so I feel like we just honestly, we don't really know all of that what we're doing, but we're
Yeah.
trying to figure it out along the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, I think that's so important because, when you can look at someone's profile, you can look at someone's page or like YouTube videos that they're doing, and you can automatically assume that a person has it all figured out, right? Because of the curated feeds and how they're creating content. It's like, oh, well, she must know this back and forth. I must have something wrong here. But I like that you said that I'm learning too.
I am learning to, and I'll often teach this, I know we love to say life be lifing because I do, but I like to consider myself a student of life, and I
Yeah.
talk about journaling a lot. And so for me, I use it as a tool of reflection. And so
Yeah.
instead of allowing life to just happen to me, I'm letting life be the inspiration of how I even create content. So
Mm,
whatever is happening to me, I'm learning like literally as I'm going and as I'm sharing, and I consider every moment a teachable moment. And for me to be able to kind of express that and share that with my people, as I like to say, like
yeah.
it's really like a gift, but it's really me figuring out life as I'm walking through it and sharing it.
Yeah, I love that because again, I just think that sometimes there's this misconception. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
it's just this whole thing with social media sometimes, or you think that, because people have followings or people show up in the capacity they do, that they're not flawed. Like all of us are trying to figure out this world of life.
All of us. And Raven, that's such a good point because at the end of the day, I think that sometimes even us as influencers, we feel like we need to
Yeah.
have it all together because there are so many
Mhm.
eyes on us and there are so many people that, take our word to be so weighty in their lives. And it's like,
Yeah.
we as influencers have to consider that, but we also have to remind ourselves of our humanity and the fact that
Mhm.
we really, first of all, we ain't God. You know what I'm saying?
There you
Like
go.
that's the fact. And
Yep.
then second of all, like we are also on this kind of life journey figuring things out,
Yeah.
especially at the capacity of, me being an influencer and this is what I do full time. Like I have to understand, like, first of all, I'm not your pastor either. Like this is not what
Yep.
I do.
Yep. Yep.
Literally this is, I'm in business as a content creator. This is what I do. And so,
Yeah.
understanding that and like having that grace, extending that grace to yourself
Mhm.
is super, super important on a daily.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you kind of mentioned that because I've, talked with a lot of influencers, people that have careers and influencers. I mean, there's a level of influence that I have, but I have an online and offline business. So it's a little bit different sometimes. And then I've worked with clients who are consider themselves brand influencers and different things of that nature. And a common theme or struggle is perfectionism. And so I like that you said that, we have to remind ourselves that we aren't this or we can't meet the expectation of everyone. And so, have you ever struggled with perfectionism? And if so, how has it failed you before?
Yes. So I honestly like to think the first thing that comes up to me when I think of perfectionism is people pleasing. And so
Mhm.
I think that perfectionism has shown up in my life as people pleasing.
Mm.
I wanted to make sure I wrapped my message in a certain way, or I wanted my feed to look a certain way, or I
Yeah.
wanted my newsletter to read a certain way, because I felt like that was, me pleasing people. And I knew what people wanted from me, but there was a moment where I evolved past the point of their exposure of me. And so
Yeah.
I needed to be okay with now, okay, this is me now. This is me like
Right.
at this level of being healed. This is me as a single woman again. This is me as the influencer that I am today. So I think that yes, it has shown up by way of people pleasing. And I really had to kind of go into prayer about it and be like,
Yeah.
okay, first of all, why do I feel like I'm boxing myself in with
Mm.
content that I'm creating or the things that I'm writing about, or even extending myself as far as like the brands that I'm working with?
Mhm.
Why do I feel like I can work with XYZ and not ABC? You know what I mean? Like what
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and so, it was kind of wrapped up in that people pleasing. And so, in the way that I kind of release myself and continue to release myself is to first
Mhm.
acknowledge, man, like I struggled with this because
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to perfectly present this image or this story, of this kind of like cherry on top story. And it's like, no, like God
Mhm.
is still restoring
Mhm.
my life. Like God is
Yep.
still doing certain things, and I don't know how it's all the way going to work out.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, in this place, this is who I am. And I've been trying to like eloquently describe like the space that I'm in, but I've honestly come to the place where I cannot let the opinion or
Mm.
the whatever the whatever of other people
Mhm. Mhm.
to bypass my obedience to the call on my life and the
Yeah.
purpose and the industry and the gap that I kind of fill on this earth. So I had to understand like, wow, I am like kind of weighing their opinion more than I am my obedience to God. So that got to change. So
Yeah.
that's how I realized I'm like, okay, yeah, I need to switch this up because at the end of the day, like God put me here for a reason and it's my job to
Yeah.
on to that.
But what does it take to get to that point? Like that aha moment where it's like, you know what, something's off balance here. Like I gotta make a switch up and I gotta make a switch up fast. Like what did it take for you to get there?
Yeah, I had to actually be honest with myself because I think I
Yeah.
was in denial. I'm like, yeah, I don't care what people say. Oh, I don't care what they, oh, okay, they commented on my, whatever. They didn't like my so and so, or they didn't like the way. Because on YouTube, like, first of all, the YouTube people, they will say what they need to say. Okay, this is like I've been on YouTube for a little while now. They will say what they need to say, and so I had to first acknowledge, like, ooh, that like that did a little something. That
Mm, mhm,
why
mhm,
and so I had to literally acknowledge, like, first of all, you are not for everyone, and that is so okay. And I know that's something that we kind of say a lot, but once you really realize you cannot please everyone, you cannot
yeah,
be for everyone, but
mhm,
as long as you continue to do the work of just self-discovery and understanding who God is and like all these different things, you
yeah,
will be settled in who
yeah,
you're called to be. And you
mhm,
will be able to tap into that identity and that confidence of who you are and what you do and how it's unique.
yeah,
It ain't gonna look like everybody else. So I
yeah,
think the very first step is just acknowledging, like, oh, okay, that hurt a little bit.
yeah.
That little, that hurt a little bit. And so now I have to figure out and dig deeper as to why and how to now adapt and how to move forward with this person of who I am.
Yeah, that's so good because I think that overall, no matter what your status is as far as like influence, on or off social media, you can easily be triggered by someone's acceptance or rejection of like what you're producing. Cause ultimately, like you're putting a lot of your blood, sweat, and tears in what you're doing. You like, wait a minute, what you just say on my comment? Like, you start, it gets to you. So I'm like, so if you were to give someone advice, like if they find themselves in this space or this place of kind of being off balance with the opinions of others versus what their God-given call is, what would you say is something that they need to look out for, like the that in-between place to say, hey, let's kind of analyze this and dig deeper here?
Yeah, I honestly, this is why I advocate, I know you do too, for
Yeah.
soul care,
Mhm.
and what are the practical things you're doing in your world, in
Yeah.
you yourself, to feed your soul? Like,
Mhm.
because I think that as an influencer, I mean, I'd love to think that I just wake up and I just have all the confidence in the world every single day. But no, sometimes I feel myself off balance, and I have
Yeah.
to say, okay, okay, let's do a heart check. Like,
Mhm.
what's
Mhm.
really going on? What am I believing about myself these days? What am I, what am I thinking through? What may have caused some insecurity? And I think honestly, when you use that tool of reflection and you are literally kind of measuring that and adding to your soul care and, really affirming yourself and what you do, like, no, you do this, like,
Yeah.
this is a part of your call, like this is a part of your business, this is a part of how you show up. And I
Yeah.
think for me it's like taking the practical steps, like
Yeah.
journaling. Like for
Mhm.
me, I mean, I don't love to work out, but I love I love the feeling after working out.
Right. Right.
For me, I really build myself up in my own like little place, like in
Yeah.
with myself, before I allow the validation or the rejection of others. Because the truth is, it's going to come. Some people are not
Mhm.
going to like
Mhm.
how your approach or what you've got to say, and that it's not even like they're not gonna like it. It's just it's like I said, it's just not for them. And so
Yeah.
you almost have to like guard yourself,
Right.
guard your heart, and really understand how precious the treasure of you is, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Like really understand, like, you know what, this is really precious, this is really special, this is really unique, and so I have to take care of this just as I would take care of anything else that I consider precious or valuable or
Yeah.
whatever. And so I think that for me, soul care, like really taking care of me in from the inside, and then I'm able to give, like
Yeah.
cheerfully give
Mhm.
from a very deep well that I've kind of built for myself in my secret place.
Yeah, yeah, I love that answer. I love that answer. So you did kind of mention too that sometimes, you would think that we want to show up confident all the time, right? Like we wake up and say, you know what, I'm just feeling good about myself every single day. And I think sometimes people assume that because when you have like an online business or you are in like lifestyle influencing or something of that nature, you kind of come off like, bright and, vibrant and different things of that nature. And so you have to show up online and create content or YouTube videos. And they sometimes think that you're always passionate, that you're always on, that you're always ready. And so are there days that you just don't feel like showing up? And how do you motivate yourself, or do you motivate yourself to show up?
Yeah, no, there are definitely certain days where I just have to shut it all down. Like literally, like, you know what, I don't
Listen.
have it in me. Like this is,
Mhm.
or this is all I've got. And
Yeah.
this is all I've got to, to give today. But I think that that stresses the importance of having system and automating things to the point where,
Mhm.
or having a well of content where you can kind of pull from on those days. And it's not being inauthentic, it's just acknowledging, like, you know what, today I don't
Yeah.
have it in me, but at
Yeah.
some point this was valuable enough for me to share, and I'm going to either repurpose it and share it today for you guys and for me, or
Right.
I'm just going to go ahead and let this be a moment for me to read through the things that I have written before and let it encourage me. And so,
Yeah.
obviously we go through our ebbs and flows in life, and it's like, even someone like me, like, I love that, a lot of people find so much joy in the content that I create, and but not even joy, just like there's this like soberness that happens when it's like, okay, life is real, like grief is
Yeah.
real, joy
Mhm.
is very much so real,
Mhm.
despair, sadness, all these different things are very much so real, but there is
Yeah.
hope, right? There is
Right.
hope. And I think for me, what has anchored me time and time again is why I do this, right?
Yeah.
Aside from business and all those things, like the why in which I do this far outweighs the days that are too heavy for me. And I quite honestly feel like walking away. Like,
Yeah.
you have no idea how many times I want to shut that YouTube channel down, but like, you know what?
Listen.
Yes, at
Yeah.
100%. And those moments are very real. And it would be something that reminds me, like those reminders are so God
Mhm.
moments.
Yeah.
But even within myself, I have to literally encourage myself because I allow myself
Yeah.
a little day or two.
Yeah. That
After about
space.
that third day, I'm like, all right, Michelle, like you gotta get up. You
Yeah.
have to get up. And I feel like it's a dance between, acknowledging, but also accountability and responsibility. And
Yeah.
carrying your mat, if you will, and going and doing what you
Yeah.
need to do.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I think something you said also was just, being able to say, this is all I got and being okay with that. You know what I mean? Like sometimes we're so in this place of, I got to produce at this level, or I have to produce at this capacity, or I have to produce at this amount, that you don't give yourself enough room to say, hey, this is what I have to give today. And that is okay. Why do you think people struggle with that so much, with being just okay with their portion?
I think that it comes down to a performance and relevancy kind of
Yeah. Mhm.
conversation, because it we've learned for so many years the importance of showing up. And
Yeah.
what does showing up mean? Well, showing up must mean every day I have to show up at 1000% and have
Right.
everything all together and all these things. But I think that, performance, like that language, like that rhetoric has
Mhm.
allowed a lot of us to go into burnout,
Yep. Mhm. Mhm.
myself included,
Yeah.
several times. And I've had to
Mhm.
look back and say, well, how did I get here?
Yeah.
Oh, because I felt like I had to go beyond my capacity for this moment, and I didn't have it in me. Like,
Yeah.
I genuinely did not
Mhm.
have it in me. And if I would have just acknowledged that I didn't have it in me, I could have just adjusted my content calendar. I could have
Yeah.
just adjusted, not going to that one event and just staying home, right? I could have just
Mhm.
adjusted my filming schedule or my podcast recording
Yeah.
schedule, right? Like, I
Yeah.
think that acknowledging that space that you're in and not letting this thing run you. I always say, like, I am not letting my platform and my social media to run my life.
Yeah.
God forbid. It could
That's
be me.
real. That's
It could be
real.
me. It could
Mhm.
be
Oh,
me.
no.
It
That
could
is
be me.
real.
It could be me. So yeah, like I really feel that way. And so I've kind of come to this place where, I creating from a rested place,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
because now I don't feel the sense of urgency. I don't
Yeah.
feel the sense of performance, because now I think social media and a lot of us are shifting a little bit. I know it's a little bit of a slow shift, but
Mhm.
it's happening. And I think people are recognizing that authenticity doesn't mean that you're always bubbly.
Right. Mhm.
Authenticity
Mhm.
is your form of uniqueness,
Yeah. Yeah.
literally.
Mhm. Love that. Love that. So this brings me to my last question, which is one of the questions I ask all my guests on this series. And so for you, what do you, oh, actually, I'm gonna backtrack and,
Go
and,
ahead,
and,
go
and
ahead.
redo it because I still got one more. So I'll edit it out. So, one of the things that I truly believe in, that you can find a life lesson in every moment. And so one of the things that you kind of just shared right now is the fact that, we have to be able to know if we are striving in a sense, right? If we're striving to meet some type of marker that sometimes can be imaginary, or just the expectations of others and how that leads to burnout and different things of that nature. So that's definitely a life lesson that you've learned yourself. So what is the most valuable lesson that you've learned being an influencer?
Oh, ooh, I feel like when you keep your integrity,
Mhm.
your moral values,
Yeah.
your character, let's just sum that up into character, right?
Yeah.
When you keep your character pure, right?
Mhm.
And your intentions pure, it will get you so far.
Yeah.
Have met people throughout the years in my you just influencer journey
Yeah.
that I didn't know who they were, but
Mm.
I was open enough to have conversation with everyone in the room that I went into.
Yeah.
And like literally along the way, it has always been these drops of conversations that then have become full circle moments
Mhm.
where opportunity has presented itself to me because I remain consistent in my
Mm.
character. And
Yeah.
so, even as I've networked or as I've met people, I've literally been consistent in who I am as a person of integrity, as a person of character, as a just a kind person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally,
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
don't know
Mhm.
like who you're talking to, and it could be the person behind the brand that you need to know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You just
True.
don't know. And so I think that just as an influencer, just from a more like like that side
Yeah.
of things, I
Mhm.
would say like for me, the biggest, most valuable lesson I've learned is to be consistent in my character. Then
Yeah.
that has taken me so far. I mean,
Yeah.
opportunities and rooms and tables, invitations, and I'm like, God, you are so good because it comes
Mhm.
from that foundation of
Yeah.
understanding that
Yeah.
character take you
Yeah.
so far. Like, woo.
That's the truth. That's the truth. One thing that you can always bet on, and I feel like is currency in itself is character because it
Yes.
pays to have your character intact. It just absolutely does.
Woo. It
Like,
does, girl, it does.
the-
I mean, no, I literally mean that. And it's a God thing because, you know, people will come for you as someone
yeah.
who is out there. You are just being you, and it's interesting what you witness.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, we've witnessed cancel culture and like all these different things, and
Yeah.
so it's very
Yeah.
important to just remain who you are. And if you're not there yet, it's okay. Just build
Right.
up that character, learn from the lessons. Like, you can really come back from anything, but just learn from those things and don't let them burden you and thinking that you can't become a better person.
Yeah, that's absolutely true because people will try to discredit who you are. You know what I mean? It's just the nature of online, business and different things of that nature. And everyone has an opinion. It doesn't matter. You can turn left,
Everyone.
right, flip around, jump, everyone has an opinion. And so people will try to discredit that. But I love that you said just remain consistent in your character no matter what, because people can't take that away from you. What people cannot take away from you is your reputation. And so if you have a good reputation, that in itself will open doors. And so I
100.
love that you said that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So that brings me to my last question that I ask all my guests on this podcast series. So from your perspective, what do you feel is the cost of relevancy and influence?
Wow.
A deep question, right?
Oh my God, what is the cost? Ooh, that kind of like hit a vein. Oh,
Yeah.
I would say the cost is almost like access in a way,
Mm,
because as you grow, or as your influence becomes, grandeur or whatever, it's
yeah.
almost like people feel entitled,
Mm,
have
mhm,
access to you.
yeah.
And so the cost is access, because it's almost like you have to learn the boundary of either denying or allowing access. And sometimes that comes with maybe people feeling away. And I'm doing the air quotes.
Yeah, that's the truth though.
For those listening, like, it feeling away and them not knowing why you need that boundary, right? So it's like the cost is access, because it's almost like you have to understand and you have to have the discernment of who you can allow and deny access into your world. Because I think that people will begin to feel entitled to your time and entitled to being in your DM and how you didn't respond to their email and like all these things. And it's like, no, baby, don't take it personal. I just can't right now. I don't have the capacity to give the access that I don't even have. Like, I don't have it in me.
Yeah.
I hope that answers it, but that's the first thing that comes to mind. That's the
I would absolutely agree, because I actually was listening to Dr. Anita Phillips. I love her. And I think someone asked her a question about, do you mentor people or, X, Y, and Z? And she gave a very honest answer. I don't have the capacity to give you that type of access in this season. So that is just the truth of the matter, is that I'm a busy person, right? In my professional career, whatever it is that I'm doing, you know what I mean? And I have other obligations where my priorities have to be. And so I can't necessarily give you this access to me in this season of my life based on what I'm carrying.
Yeah.
And so that's a cost that comes with it, but I couldn't agree more with that answer.
Yes.
Oh my
and
goodness.
honestly, I feel like you have to come to a place to acknowledge that, because I think that what happens is, because we care about our followers and supporters and all these things, we almost feel like we have to give them that access.
Yeah.
And the reality is that we don't have to. We're already creating for them. We're already serving them. We're already servicing them, and so it's almost like, okay, we have to kind of consolidate that, what that means for us, what access actually means to us.
Yeah. I love that. It's been so nice talking to you.
Oh, you too, Raymond. I'm like, can we just continue the conversation? Like, that was so good. Like, I love having these types of conversations, because I think that it kind of just so perfectly marries, like, just like the soul and like the business side of just being an influencer. And I think that is where it's at,
And I think it's also where it's needed, especially with how things are, developing, in the social media world. And like you said too, we are kind of seeing this shift of people starting to realize how important rest and soul care and all these different things are, and how business can sometimes become idolatry, where we're worshiping it more than we are pouring into ourselves. And now we're seeing the result of that.
Woo-hoo. Girl, you just said a whole lot that could be a whole part two. Absolutely. I agree. I'm not even going to add to it, because I 100% agree. 100%.